Hey, here's our article of the week for the week, and it is also our actively learned for the week. Now I moved it over to student view, so what you see here should be what you see on your iPad. So our guiding question at the top is, how do smartphones affect the time teenagers spend in person with their friends? Now, when we talked about text structure, we talked about different text structures kind of answer different questions or do different things. If this is asking us a driving question, how do smartphones affect time teenagers spend in person with their friends? This isn't going to be a description essay. It might be a problem and solution, but probably not. Could be a cause and effect essay, could be proposition and support. So when you look at the very beginning, you start to ask yourself these questions of, what is it I'm about to read? Are they selling me something? Are they going to give me some information? And the very beginning of the essay tells you a lot about it. It's got a poll question for you. How much time per day do you spend on social media? Get out your phones. Be honest. Be honest with me. Be honest with yourself. Oh, I have to answer. Probably in the middle. I don't know. Could be wrong. All right, teens have less face time with their friends and are lonelier than ever. That is a statement. This author is saying that this is true. So that is a claim, that is a proposition. The author is saying this is true. Somebody could come up and argue with this author if they wanted to. Ask a teen today how she communicates with her friends, and she'll probably hold up her smartphone. Not that she actually calls her friends. It's more likely she texts them or messages them on social media. So question 2, based on the title, what do you think the author is arguing for or against? The author is arguing that is the way you need to start your answer. Nope, submit. All right. Today's teen, the generation I call iGen, that's also called Gen Z, are constantly connected with their friends via digital media, spending as much as 9 hours a day on average with screens. How might this influence the time they spend with their friends in person? Some studies have found that people who spend more time on social media actually have more face time with friends. But studies like this are only looking at people already operating in a world suffused with smartphones. They can't tell us how teens spent their time before and after digital media use surged. What if we zoomed out and compared how often previous generations of teens spent time with their friends to how often today's teens are doing so? And what if we also saw how feelings of loneliness differed across the generations? To do this, my co-authors and I examined trends in how 8.2 million U.S. teens spent time with their friends since the 1970s. It turns out that today's teens are socializing with friends in fundamentally different ways, and also happen to be the loneliest generation on record. Question 3. Why did the author start with asking today's teen how they communicate? Always choose the best answer. The author starts this way so the reader is thinking about how things were in the past and how it was a better time. The author starts this way to show how cell phones are bad for teens. The author starts this way to make the reader start thinking about how they communicate with their friends so they can connect with the text. The author starts this way because she does not know how today's teen communicates. I have to pick one to go on, so I'm just going to pick the last one. No, I don't like that. Alright, after studying 2 large nationally representative surveys, we found that although the amount of time teens spent with their friends face-to-face has declined since the 1970s, the drop accelerated after 2010 just as smartphone use started to go down. Just reading this sentence, what can we infer caused the decline in face-to-face interactions? This sentence makes me think okay, and then you would finish. Compared with teenagers in previous decades, iGen teens are less likely to get together with their friends. They're also less likely to go to parties, go out with friends, date, ride in cars for fun, go to shopping malls or the movies. It's not because they're spending more time on work, homework, or extracurricular activities. Today's teen hold fewer paid jobs. Homework time is either unchanged or down since the 1990s, and time spent on extracurricular activities is about the same. Yet they're spending less time with their friends in person, and by large margins in the late 1970s, 52% of the 12th graders got together with their friends almost every day. By 2017, only 28% did. The drop was especially pronounced after 2010. Now take some time to look at the graph. In the 1980s, a little over 50% of 12th graders got together on a routine basis. 8th and 10th graders in 1990 started. And as we can see, all of the grade levels steadily, almost drastically, fall off on how much face-to-face time. Today's 10th graders go out about 17 fewer parties a year than 10th graders did in the 1980s. Overall, 12th graders now spend an hour less on in-person and social interaction on an average day than their Gen X predecessors did. We wondered if these trends would have implications for feelings of loneliness, which are also measured in one of the surveys. Sure enough, just as the drop in face-to-face time accelerated after 2010, teens' feelings of loneliness shot upward. Cite the main idea in the previous paragraph, paragraph 13, that supports the author's position. Well, I don't have any numbers on mine, so I'll go back and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So if the author is stating that loneliness has gone up since cell phones started, And the ellipses, the three little dots at the end, I'm not finishing the question. You guys need to do it on your own. Among 12th graders, 39% said they often felt lonely in 2017, up from 26% in 2012. 38% said they often felt left out in 2017, up from 30% in 2012. In both cases, the 2017 numbers were all-time high since the questions were first asked in 1977, with loneliness declining among teens before suddenly increasing. Provide a piece of data that best supports the author's position that teens are lonelier than ever. So this data needs to support that they're lonelier, not that it's getting easy. Data that supports the and then I would finish my answers in the quotes, in the ellipses. All right, the percentage who agreed or mostly agreed with this statement, a lot of times I feel lonely, has shot up in recent years. A new cultural norm. As previous studies have shown, we did find that those teens who spent more time on social media also spent more time with their friends in person. So why have in-person social interactions been going down? Overall, as digital media has increased, it has to do with the group versus the individual. Imagine a group of friends that doesn't use social media. The group regularly gets together, but the more outgoing members are willing to hang out more than others who might stay at home once in a while. Then they all sign up for Instagram. The social teens are still more likely to meet in person, and they're also more active on their accounts. However, the total number of in-person hangs for everyone in the group drops as social media replaces some face-to-face time. So the decline in face-to-face interaction among teens isn't just an individual issue, it's a generational one. Even teens who eschew social media are affected. Who will hang out with them when most of their peers are alone in their bedrooms scrolling through Instagram? Higher levels of loneliness are just the tip of the iceberg. Rates of depression and unhappiness also skyrocketed among teens after 2012, perhaps because spending more time with screens and less time with friends isn't the best formula for mental health. Some have argued that teens are simply choosing to communicate with their friends in a different way, so the shift toward electronic communication isn't concerning. That argument assumes that electronic communication is just as good for assuaging loneliness and depression as face-to-face interaction. It seems clear that this isn't the case. There's something about being around another person, about touch, about eye contact, about laughter, that can't be replaced by digital communication. The result is a generation of teens who are lonelier than ever before. According to this text, do teenagers need face-to-face social interaction? Cite evidence from the text to support your answer. Okay, and that's how I would start my answer. According to the text, teens need social interaction. It states, All right. Based on what the author shared on group gatherings, what alternatives would you offer for teens who are feeling lonely and isolated but want to interact face to face with friends or peers? And then you are done. Now, I wanted to look at something with the vocabulary. Starting here, that argument assumes, that argument assumes that electronic communication is just as good for assuaging loneliness and depression as face-to-face interaction. The word assuaging here. Electronic communication is just as good for assuaging loneliness. It's just as good for taking away loneliness. It's just as good for healing loneliness. That's word replacement. If I take out the assuaging and say that argument assumes that electronic communication is just as good for gobbledygook loneliness, what would we replace that with? Then we would replace it with ending or healing. So let's see what assuaging actually means. To make something such as an unpleasant feeling less painful. Okay? So it makes the loneliness go away. But when we use it, it's with things like he couldn't assuage his guilt. He couldn't assuage his hunger or thirst. So it has to do with making something unpleasant go away. Take the time to pay attention to the words that you aren't familiar with. There are a couple of really great words. Add some of these words to your writer's notebook on the vocabulary page. I want to challenge you to find 2 or 3 words to do that with. Thank you for taking a look at this video. I hope it was helpful and making sure that you know what you're doing with your Actively Learn and you're getting a great grade. And I hope you have a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, and I can't wait to see your face.